You're listening to the Monday Night Community Show with Daniel on BRFM.
This is the Daniel Monday Night Community Show on demand through YouTube. Thank you very much for choosing to listen to us through this method. If you'd like to keep up to date with when I add new interviews, then subscribe to this channel. We're now going to be talking to Jane live in the studio. Jane, it's good to see you back.
Yeah, hi Daniel, it's great to be back. What a gorgeous day.
Yes, lovely day up here at Windy Ridge. I was wondering, although you've been up here before and I've caught up with you down at the boxing club, if you could just give our listeners a little bit of an introduction into yourself and I suppose a brief bit about the project before we go on to everything in a bit more detail.
Okay, I'm an artist who uses sound in their work, so that means that sometimes I make installations, sometimes I make sculptures, but I like to include sound and also very much like to work with people and invite them to be part of making the sound.
So, as our listeners are probably aware, you've been working with the boxing club, the Minster Golden Gloves Boxing Club, since January. It's the second local group we've been working with. What has it been like working with them, Jane?
It's been amazing, and now looking back, it seems to have gone incredibly quickly. It's 5 months, we've been there since January. It was freezing cold and dark, and now it's bright sunshine, and you just think God couldn't be luckier to be able to travel backwards and forwards and see all those seasons passing by. Really lovely club, very focused on what everyone's there for, but it's also, there's a lot of humour, very friendly, it's quite a family atmosphere, and it's just been great seeing particularly the younger ones improving or developing their skills as boxers, but also just that importance in their lives for the fitness, for the routine, for having this very strong kind of core to their week.
Well, I was wondering, Jane, have you achieved everything that you wanted to?
Now that's a good question, isn't it? Because you start out with a plan and you hope to achieve all of it, but then of course once you're on the project, then your expectations and your kind of excitement about everything that's happening around you slightly changes. But there was one thing that I did want to do that didn't quite happen, which was getting everyone to kind of voice the phonetic sounds in a sort of short piece. But I have got I did do that in some small bits, so I'm not sad about it. It's not something that was actually a problem. What it did was make me more aware of the club and what's happening there, and not aware of what I needed to do. It was very much enabled me to kind of embrace the chance and the opportunity and enjoy being there.
So is it more a case of spending the time and capturing those sounds more naturally rather than actually sitting people down and getting them to do it?
Definitely. I think it would have just been... Well, I didn't want to interrupt the flow of things. It's just a very definite flow. It's there's a routine. The kids and the adults that go there know that routine to an extent. It changes and develops a little bit each week, and obviously the trainers have their goals and their aims of how they want everyone to develop. So that's the important thing about the club, and so it was important to just go with that.
So was it in a way everything you expected, I suppose?
I think it was... Do you know, I don't know if I had expectations in that way. I just knew I was going to enjoy it. I was really looking forward to it. And so, in some ways you could say it's better than I expected because I enjoyed it so much. But I didn't have preconceived expectations.
Have you managed to record everything you wanted to?
Well, I didn't start with a list, so I guess you could say yes, I have in a way. But of course, the more time you spend listening in a particular situation, the more sounds that interest you unfold. So maybe it's not possible to actually ever record all the things you want to, because for example, skipping, that was a sound I really wanted to capture, but there's no one sound that exists in isolation at any time in the boxing club because everyone is active at every moment. So there are quieter moments, there are really clamorous moments, but you can't predict exactly when anything's going to happen. So that kind of becomes the excitement of it, and just trying to capture that in different ways, and try and get the different rhythms and different paces, which I guess I'll talk about later, how I tried to do that.
Well, Jane, I was hoping you could introduce the sound, because I know it's got an overall title, and then each part's got its own individual title. So I was wondering if you can let our listeners know what they are.
Well, the overall title is "Don't Tickle Me, Punch," which was something I really liked. One of the trainers said to one of the young boys that was, I think, quite new to sparring, and was, obviously didn't want to punch his trainer too hard because he respects him. But so that's the overarching title, and this first piece is called "Jabs Up, Let's Go," and it's basically an introduction to the clamorous voice of the club.
Well, here is that first piece of sound art for you. And that is our first piece of sound art from our second sound artist, Jane Pitt. She's been working with the Minster Golden Gloves Boxing Club since January, and we're going to be playing out a series of radio programmes, pieces of sound art over the next couple of weeks, all from Jane. And at the moment we're joined with her live in the studio, and we're talking to her all about how she's been getting on with the club, and of course we're going to be talking to her about that particular piece of sound art as well. Jane, I was wondering if you could let us know a little bit about the process you used while working with the Minster Golden Gloves Boxing Club to produce that, and obviously to go on to make the other pieces that we'll be hearing over the next couple of weeks as well.
Well, this first piece was all pretty much done with a stereo microphone, quite as directional as I could use on a boom, so that I could be as close as possible to the boxers without stepping in their way and getting in their way. So I alternated between using that microphone and using a much more broader omnidirectional microphone, and using contact mic, so that I placed the microphone onto certain surfaces, so that I could get the vibrations that go through the building from everything that happens. So some of the following three will use that.
I imagine it's quite a difficult process sometimes, trying to sort of isolate the bits you want, because I assume like that bit we just heard, that must have been a massive record. You had to pick all those right bits out.
Yeah, I've got 5 months worth of recording, and also, yeah, I was very keen that I didn't want to encroach on anyone's privacy, so I didn't want to capture anyone's conversations. It purely had to be about the boxing. Everyone's there for the boxing, and the piece is about the boxing. But yeah, there's kind of lots of 25-second bits and then some minute-long bits. But I'm glad I stuck to the 3-minute format, or roughly 3 minutes, because it's a really satisfying kind of amount of time. There's something very, very kind of spherical about it.
Well, to me it was almost like, for me, you know, when I'll come along with you on some of the different occasions over the months, it was almost capturing that sort of evening when you go there, sort of a start, a beginning, end, all the different processes, and you know, that kind of sort of that piece, I suppose, captured that initial atmosphere and what you initially experience when you first go there and sit in on one of those training sessions.
Yeah, that's what I really wanted to start off with that. I actually didn't know that a couple of weeks ago that was going to be the first one, which might sound odd. But I just very much wanted, you know, there's a huge intensity when you first go to the club, which I assume is the same in all boxing clubs. But it's quite a private world, really, and it's a real privilege to have been able to spend all that time getting to know people and just being there. And I wanted to share that kind of focus and intensity that has so impressed me all over the months.
We're joined with her live in the studio. We're talking to her all about how she's been getting on in the boxing club. She's been working with them since January, and of course all about the piece of sound art which we just aired, and that's already available through our YouTube channel, so you can listen to it again anytime you'd like to. And actually it's quite a good one to listen to. I had a couple of listens, and each time you listen you pick up different bits and you know, different people sort of talking and that sort of real atmosphere, so it's well worth a second list, I think, isn't it, Jane?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I love the rhythm of the words that the trainers use. I mean, there's about 2 or 3, maybe 4 of the trainers actually featured in there, so there are slightly different tones to the voices, but just the instructions that they're giving are beautiful.
So I was wondering, you know, sort of talking about that, have your plans changed since you started the project back in January?
I guess they have a little. That's what's been really lovely about this project. It's been quite a flexible, you know, with yourself, Daniel, and BRFM, and with Francis Knight. At the beginning, I said, "Oh, I'm going to spend a sort of intensive month or 2 months going every night of the week to the club," but I soon realised actually it felt more natural to go once a week and go for a longer amount of time. So it was good to change that plan, and also I had said I would do 3-minute pieces, but I'm doing 4. So, you know, there's room for flexibility. I think you have to have that.
Yeah, I think that's nice. That's one of the things, you know, I found working with the groups over the years, the more sort of time you can spend with them, and the sort of slower process you use, so they get used to you, the more you can sometimes get out of it. So I'm glad, I think Jim found that, and you found that as well, by spending that time, over a longer period rather than being too intense, can sort of pay off.
Yeah, definitely, because otherwise you kind of feel like you're kind of zoomed in there, kind of landed in this place where nobody knows you, and the purpose is to have some sort of exchange between, we're strangers to start off with, and then we've kind of got to know each other a little bit and shared interests.
Jane, I was just wondering, perhaps looking ahead, if you could give our listeners a rough idea of the next 3 parts.
Well, this one you've heard tonight is very much an introduction to kind of the voice of the club with lots of their own voices, and the next 3 I'm going to focus on the breaths, the out breaths, that fantastic ush ush sound, and the contact mic recordings that I made. So that'll be kind of like almost going underneath and in between the layers, kind of almost submerging ourselves in the boxing world, and so that will feel quite different. And then the final piece will focus on the skipping, so the rhythms of the ropes, and I might add a bit of my own voice too as well. But the middle piece will be very much kind of like the fabric of the building, the sounds that almost the building creates in combination with the boxing.
So, Jane, is there anything else you'd like to cover before we finish?
Yes, I'd very much like to say thank you, Minster Golden Gloves Amateur Boxing Club, for letting me be there and lurk around. You're great.
Yeah, I'd certainly like to say a big thank you, personally, for letting us come along, and also working with BRFM and Francis Knight and you, because I think we've really enjoyed it and actually become a part of the teams. I think probably people often go and watch boxing matches, but you wouldn't normally go and sit and be part of a training session. So I think perhaps at first they did find it a bit strange, but they got used to us, and I certainly felt we become a part of their sort of their team, their group, I think.
Yeah, it was very welcoming, and just being there was great, and thanks Tiger Tyres Terry.
Well, Jane, thank you very much for coming along as well. It's been a great process. That's Jane Pitt, our second sound artist, coming along this evening to talk all about how she's been getting on working with the Minster Golden Gloves Boxing Club in Bluetown. Talk a little bit about our first piece of sound art of 4 parts from Jane and the Boxing Club, and we'll have the next part next week here at the Monday Night Community Show.